Now, very quickly, so that your 40 minutes are not wasted, concerning psychology of religion, you can see the key characters. Carl Jung or Carl Jung and his teacher, Sigmund Freud, others call him Sigmund Freud, and you can see what kind of questions that one may put in his mind, his or her mind. What is the relationship between religion and psychology? Discuss the relation of dreams to religion and psychology. Discuss psychological meaning of any of the following: religious conversion, religious growth, or psychology of religion, all that. And of course, I want to, psychology of religion deals with with human growth, the stages of growth, how somebody graduates from infant, the characteristics, what is expected psychologically of you when you are an infant, then as an adolescent, then as an adult. That is psychology. And of course, it is beyond there. Now, there is also themes brought about by key characters like Jung, who was dismissive of religion. And there is also Freud and others. Their contribution also makes a huge contribution on psychology of religion. Now, concerning Jung, Freud, Jung or Jung on religion, since in the popular mind, psychology is still often seen as synonymous with Freud, seen as a father, is a debate. Is he the father of psychology? That's a huge debate. Yeah, because why is he the most controversial? We have talked about that. It is not surprising that his views, or Freud's views on religion, continue to appeal to many and are widely quoted. So, the theories of both Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung continue to fascinate all of us. Freud wrote about primitive religion and developed religion. He saw the origins of religion in the psychological connection between his Oedipus complex and totemism, as it existed in small primitive groups. Of course, the word primitive is a very controversial vocabulary. Some people may get annoyed when you use it, because they say, when you call us primitive, who are you? Who is more primitive than the other? All that. People see others as not good, so why should you call some people? Of course, that is him. He had the people he called primitive societies. And of course, the details of Oedipus complex, we don't want to get back to it, or totems. Of course, that's more of an anthropological term. As an atheist, Freud held that religion was an illusion and promises that humans need to be liberated by science. As time went by, Freud's theories on religion were deemed incorrect, and consequently, his view fell more and more into disrepute. Of course, Malinowski, anthropologist, in his book Sex and Repression in Primitive Society, differed with him and told him off. Equally, his student Carl Jung differed with him and continued with his Christian faith. Okay? Religion was their point of departure. That's where they departed. Each went his way. Now, you can also talk about Freud and illusion. In his understanding, illusion stands for any belief system which is based on human wishes. For that reason, religion is human wishes. For him, Christianity was and is a false religion. He, however, noted that religion has served a useful purpose in providing a sense of security for humanity in the face of a hostile environment. Religion to him also provides an important reservoir for ethical standards as civilization had developed. He, however, felt that the time had come when such a basis could no longer usefully serve the needs of modern people, who must find some more rational grounds for living a civilized life. So you can see here, Sigmund Freud saw religious people and is not civilized enough. While his student sees it is everything. Jung, or is Carl Jung or Jung, depending on the pronunciation, saw him as somebody who needs to be ignored. You have to ignore Freud to move on. Malinowski, likewise, did the same. Now, Freud on religion and social neurosis. Freud concluded that religion is an entering social neurosis, which people must grow out of if they are to become mature, educated persons able to cope with reality. Freud felt that religion in the past had helped people to escape from realities of life. To him, religion offered an explanation to puzzles and challenges faced in the world on one hand, and an escape from the constraints on the other hand. So religion to him is a means of protection and escape. The function of gods is that they are substitute ideal fathers. So that is how you dismiss religion as a social neurosis, and gods as nothing but ideal fathers, imagined father, and talks about gods. Yeah, or some people escaping reality, and some people, but you could see something positive functions of it. Okay. You could talk about security in it. You feel secure. You could say religion also provides ethical standards of civilization, where civilization had developed in his own Western understanding, and the controversial understanding of what civilization is all about. Now, religion to Freud became the protection of child's relationship with the father, so that gods in all their different guises were simply magnified father figures. So when a young boy hears about the father figures or gods, he thinks somebody greater than the very fearful father. If he has father phobia, there is one who is bigger than the father figure. Than that, those are the gods. So religion comforts you with some form of feeling protected. Jung or Carl Jung suggests that all religions have their psychological roots in what he called collective unconscious of the human race. For Jung, religion is not a matter of theological concept, it's not a matter of theological concept, but primarily of experience, since it is only through experiences that concept can be formulated. He went on to argue that what exists in the human psyche existed in reality. In other words, he strongly contrasted with his teacher, Sigmund Freud. So religion was real, not a neurosis or anything. It's not escapism, it is real. Even though Carl Jung also developed his ideas within the psychoanalytic tradition that Sigmund Freud is associated with, he still differed with Freud. Whilst for Freud, psychology pointed to religion as neurosis, which in time could be dispelled and the patient cured. For Jung, religion is an essential activity of humanity, and the task of psychology is not to explain away religion, but to try and understand how human nature reacts to situations normally described as religious. In summary, summing up the difference between Freudian and Jungian views, G.S. Spinks who lived between 1903 to 1978, aptly wrote, I quote, "For Freud, religion was an obsessional neurosis, and at no time did he modify that judgment. For Jung, it was the absence of religion that was the chief cause of adult psychological disorders." These two statements or sentences indicate how great is the difference between their respective standpoints on religion. End of quotes. Of course, the other psychological views on religion, I don't want to get into details, by Gordon Allport, who lived between 1887 to 1967, and who traced religion from childhood to adolescence through into maturity, okay, and emphasized the belief in God functions differently for different people at different times in their lives. That was his emphasis, that belief in God functions. Belief in God itself functions differently psychologically. We don't psychologically perceive God the same way. There is always a sense in which we react to matters to do with God and beliefs in religion, in religious discourses differently as a psychological issue. He also attempted to substantiate his claims from empirical studies of religious belief and behavior. There is also William Sagat, who lived between 1907 and 88. Of course, he was a psychiatrist, and he attempted to link brainwashing and religious conversion, and suggested where he talked about both operate in large evangelistic meetings. That the suggestion and brainwashing both operate in large evangelistic meetings. He identified the effective ingredients at work intentionally or unintentionally in such campaigns. Of course, all this includes publicity, all that. Skinner, B.F. Skinner, whom we considered elsewhere, a behaviorist psychologist, he said, I quote, "The religious agency is a special form of government under which good and bad became pious and sinful." Okay? He argued that good things personified in a God are reinforcing, whereas the threat of hell is an aversive stimulus, and these are used to shape behavior. He spoke of concept of God being reduced to what we find positively reinforcing. He also talked about the biology of God. Okay? So, writing under the provocative title, The Biology of God, B.F. Skinner, Professor Aristahandi traced out his wider view of biology to encompass the records of human experience and studies of human behaviors, and held that there is an important link between biological system and the evolution of religion. Of course, I can't go on to talk about what Professor Handy felt. Of course, he had little time for historical events of redemption history as recorded in scripture, and hence suitable quotes to bolster his views. Okay? He can be criticized as too simplistic, naive, and speculative. For his own thesis, Professor Handy is a special pleading, especially when he writes that, I quote, "The faithfulness, love, and devotion of a dog for his master show us the same elements that make up the essentials of humans' attitude to their personal God." You see, those are the simplicity. You would compare the faithfulness of a dog to his master to that of human beings and God. That to us can be a bit simplistic, but he based it on his own psychological perspective. Okay. So generally, what is the importance of studying psychology of religion? Why should we waste all this time? The psychology of religion has much to offer everyone, Muslims and Christians alike, Buddhist, Jainism, Sikhism, Taoism, every religious orientation will benefit. It helps the church in particular in areas such as the systematic attempts to understand differences between behaviors of religious and non-religious people. The study of how hallucinogenic drugs may raise religious awareness is also very important. We are seeing some people calling themselves pastors after stints in drugs, and they appear to do well for some time, and then they fail very badly because of the effect. And so you can see psychology of religion will help us to compare, to bring in the effect of such things and religion. The time is and has passed when psychology was viewed as necessarily a potential threat to religion, or science is an enemy to religion. We have stopped being simplistic. We know religion has to dialogue with all that which God created. After all, where does God permeate? The creator, where doesn't God come in? Is it in science? Now, psychology is neutral and may be applied in ways which are either helpful and unhelpful. The majority of psychologists recognize that to offer an explanation of religious behavior, its origins and expression, does not necessarily amount to attempts to explain away these beliefs. Angel states, I quote, "It does not follow that because a belief has psychological roots, it is therefore false. There needs to be no relation between a psychological basis for a belief and the truth of that belief." End of quotes. Now, other things that you see in psychology of religion is child psychology, where we trace the child from all those stages: earlier social behavior, negativism that comes in, the no stage, negativism when the child refuses to comply with the adult request, how this negativism declines after the 4th year, okay, as the child learns that it is more rewarding to comply. There is also rivalry stage where at 3, a child is interested only in the toys themselves. At 4, he becomes jealous towards any child of the same age who shows interest in his toys. At 5, he is envious of the praise given for him or her, okay, for high or speedy output or drawings, buildings, etc. At 6, his or her competitive spirit is well developed. There is also the time of teasing and bullying one another. The bully boys, at the time they harass one another, aggressive to one another. There is also the stage of jealousy. Okay, the preschool children now show jealousy towards younger siblings by ignoring their presence or even through bodily attack. At the peak of jealousy comes between 3 and 4 years of age. Okay, statistics show that out of 3 jealous children, statistics show that out of 3 jealous children, 2 are girls. So girls are more jealous. Yes, they slap the other one at that very age. When a young one is born, it's very uncomfortable. Girls, that is the statistics. Jealous are more jealous amongst one another than the way it is to the boy. Yes, out of 3, 2 are girls. There is more jealousy in children of higher intelligence than in those of lower intelligence. That is psychology. The oldest child in the family is more often jealous than his later-born siblings. She wants parents to love him or her more than the others. All these are details. There's also stammering and stuttering. Of course, stuttering is the involuntary repetition of a sound, syllable, or word. Stammering is an ability to utter even one complete word. But tutoring, all of us may find ourselves having it. Sometimes we are tired of what we have been doing during the day, and we can tutor a bit. You can have that's tutoring, but stammering is inability to utter even one complete word. It's troubling. In other words, stammering is a severe form of tutoring. They are both curable speech disorders. Most tutoring has a psychological origin. More than half of those who tutor begin at the age of 4 or 5, and stuttering is a symptom of social maladjustment and develops because of fear, self-consciousness, a feeling of inferiority, thwarting, or too much parental supervision. When it is too much, you are very strong parents. You are always like you are fearing, you are shivering when you see them, and that brings about a lot of stuttering. Or if you can also have a family, and you can also be brought up in an area where there is too much violence, and that itself can contribute to stuttering, and if push comes to shove, it can be even the worst, stammering. Psychologists offer the families of stutterers the following simple rules. 1. Don't call attention to the child's speech. Don't nag a favorite child. Don't insist that the child say things in a certain way. Don't interfere with the child's descriptions and reports. Don't upset him by requiring him or her to preface every request with please. Do not try to help the child adjust to his fears or feelings of inadequacy. Number 7, give the child self-confidence. Number 8, the last, let him listen to what he says rather than how he says it. Note, however, that stuttering ones can be taken to a speech therapy clinics again. There are many things, even morality, religion, inspiration, play, toys, games, running in school, mental development of a child, the gang age, especially at the age of 9 to 10, when children find more and more pressures in being with small groups of children of their own sex. The child now admires the gang even more than going out with parents. The gang, which now dominates his or her life, sets the styles in clothing, play, and ideas of right and wrong. There is also the gang leader. During the gang age, the idea of the group is represented by its leader. The gang leaders tend to excel over their fellow gang members in most characteristics. Usually, the gang leader is the oldest, largest, most skillful, cleverest member of the group, or that. There is also psychological effect of this gang. The child of 9 to 10 years listens to the gang leader, not the parent, not the brother, the older brother, not the elder sister. On the other hand, she begins to act like a 3-year-old boy, again, by doing the exact opposite of what she is told to do by adults. And to show that she is not afraid, she will commit exhibitionist shows, acts of minor arson, etc. Other effects of gang membership include the taking of physical risks, the use of obscenity, profanity, lying, and acts of contempt or for adult values. There is also competition and cooperation. There is also older child's morality. Okay? For unlike the younger child, the child old enough to have joined a gang has a strong sense of injustice. For him or her, adult-made rules are unfair always. The problems of the rules made are the origin. That is, adult made it. If it were made by the gang, there would be no complaints. The gang members believe it is wrong to lie to another member of his or her gang. To betray one another is bad. To abuse the weak gang member and to steal from his or her gang member is bad. If an adult breaks any of the rules of the adult morality, the older child is convinced of the utter moral hypocrisy of the adult, and in some cases, to the adults in general. What most lack is conscience, that is, the ability to admit faults. There is also within child psychology the parental role. Parents should not permit some weaknesses of children so that they can be lenient towards their human weaknesses. This will make them realize that proper heroes to admire are not imaginary perfect men, but all real men and women who are merely good. Now, this also now, we can also jump within this this psychology of religion. We can also talk of psychology of adolescence. It is also within psychology of religion. And you can see there are expectations that I will not get into. Puberty, okay, where some pretend that nothing is happening, others are proud of the new development, the social sexual maturity in boys, okay, all the details here. Most boys attain sex characteristics at 13 years, okay, and the social sexual maturity in girls, when some get embarrassed as they grow, okay, that is psychology. There's also adolescent problems. The real problems of the adolescent lie in the area of social, emotional, moral, and economic maturity. There is also hormonal challenges that are there in adolescent problems, can be very, very painful. Sometimes we have defined adolescence from 19 or 18 to 25. Others have put it down. But if we use 18 to 25, they say that is the worst age in a human life. A lot of frustration, sexual, emotional, anything is frustrating. Ambition, everything is frustrating. It is in America where if somebody kills another person when he's 25 and below, he's taken to rehabilitation center and released because they say he's still sick. It's an age of sickness. You are not capable of making good decisions. And nobody should blame you for what you did when you are below 25. Nobody should blame you because you are not mature enough to make good decisions. Now, coming now to infant psychology, we have looked at it in different ways because it involves so many things. Prenatal life, birth experience, reflex act, what a baby does on the first day, cries, sucks, swallows, vomits, brings, stretches. All these details are part of infant psychology. How when you are 12 months, you can utter 3 words. When you are 15 months old, you can utter 19 words. When you are 18 months old, you can utter 22 words. When you are 2 years old or 24 months, you can utter 272. It is good for you to know these things, whether you are practicing religion. It is good because you have madrasa, you have Sunday school. How will you do this unless you know all these things about infant psychology, the toilet training, okay? Uniresis, where some children past the age of 3.5 to 4 continue to wet their beds. A condition called enuresis. About 10% of the cases of enuresis have physical causes. RGs have traced many cases of bedwetting in older children to food sensitivities because of RGs. The bedwetting stops when the responsible food is removed from the diet. Most cases of enuresis result from psychological disturbance or poor rearing procedures. Punishment, scolding, and excitement exaggerate the enuresis. Punishment causes the child to become obsessed with the fear that he will wet himself, and the fear causes him to wet him or herself. So if you also have tough people, shouting fathers, tough people, such phobia like growth, where you grow in fear, can also contribute to enuresis. And it may go on, even some person who are even almost their adolescence, their challenges. There's also feeding. Feeding is part of this infant psychology, how the feeding is done. Where a normal child will eat enough food if it is palatable, okay? And also thumb sucking. It's a child problem created by parents. It's normal for even a well-fed child to press his thumb in his mouth, okay? Of course, it relieves an infant tension and stimulates the sensitive membranes of the mouth presently. There's also importance of play. There's also physical importance. There's also social importance, okay? Because some of it, without it, because socialization leads children to behave in a social manner. Without it, the child becomes a selfish and domineering, and he runs to share, to cooperate, and to make friends. There's also education importance. Play teaches young children to perceive shapes, color, sizes, textures. Okay, all these. Yeah, of course, Sigmund Freud comes again. We have already considered all these things, and I think that is where we'll get to. Any comment, any question, we add everything. We end everything. You can see the questions there. Why should we study psychology or even psychology of religion? Any question? Any comments?